All right, and we are now live on Instagram as well. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Corey Empowers. Today we are featuring Dr. Iyanla Vanzant. And I must say that I took the time to make sure I was saying your name correct.
Child, I've been
Because I
called.
was one of those people who just knew they could say your last name right. And I was like, Dr. Iyanla Vanzant, you got to put the emphasis on it. So I did play a snippet of something that you had recorded some time ago when you were on your show, and you gave all the different pronunciations that you've heard through the years. So that was so very helpful. And for those who didn't know and may have been ashamed to ask,
I know.
Dr. Iyanla Vanzant.
I always say hooked on phonics. Van.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is the 30th episode of Mental Wealth Wednesday. We have transitioned from mental health check-ins to Mental Wealth Wednesday, where we're focusing on culture, politics, and most importantly, mental health and well-being. And tonight for our 30th episode, we have Dr. Iyanla Vanzant, the master teacher and spiritual life coach. And who better to talk about this very, very important topic of severe mental illness and spirituality. And I just thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for all the work that you're doing around the globe, helping to improve people's lives, helping people to improve their lives, and giving them the steps and real practical tools that they can use to do that. And with that, I'll give you two examples, two beautiful women that I know. One is my sorority sister, Sierra Leone. She wanted me to let you know that she said hello. She said hello and she loves you. And also Dr. Lalisa Anthony from Canton, Ohio, who said that you helped her at a critical time to move forward with your 2005 Starting Over series. So you know that you have touched so many lives, but I just wanted you to know that those two particular young ladies wanted to say hello to you and let you know how much you have impacted their lives.
Thank
So
you. It's such an honor. I'm blessed that people trust me with their lives. I take
mm,
it very, very seriously. And sometimes people trust me more than they trust themselves. They need to take a class because we need to fix that. But
yes.
yeah, I'm honored. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So tonight we're going to delve into this very complex relationship, or at least help people to see that there is a relationship between severe mental illness and spirituality, and just exploring things that people may grapple with in their lives, whether they're a caregiver. I most recently heard the phrase care partner for
Yeah.
someone who has different conditions that they may not be able to manage on their own. And just in your work, I would just love for you to share your wisdom in how you consider spirituality to be something that can impact or help create a path for those who may be experiencing psychotic disorders,
Right.
symptoms related to psychotic disorders, and don't know that they are, but the
Yeah.
family knows that something is going on and they want to help.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have to think of mental health simply as another form of health. And particularly for us as people of color, red people, brown people, black people, we don't like to discuss that.
Mm.
And even that is a function of ancestral trauma. Ancestral trauma, because uh, please let me not be black and have something wrong with me.
Yes.
Okay, that is
Those
just too
strikes.
okay. I can't be black and have something wrong with me. And that, when we think about mental health, we didn't talk about it, we hid it, we covered it up. And so when people were having those experiences, and I mean, slavery, if nothing else, that was traumatic. They covered it up, they hid it. We still carry that cellular memory. Uh,
Hmm.
that we couldn't be black and savage and poor and whatever, and still our brain is not functioning right because we're already deficient just by being people of color. But today, when we think of mental health, we just have to think of it as another form of health. Mental meaning mind. That's it. Reproductive health. That's your reproductive organ. Neurological health. That's your brain. So dental health, it's just another form of health. So if we can start to begin to de-traumatize it and really understand your mind has to be cared for.
Yes.
As a metaphysician, and as a spiritual technician, I know that everything begins in mind. First, the universal mind, God mind, infinite intelligence, whatever you want to call it. And then that mind ideates down into the individual minds, your mind, my. And there has to be a distinction made between the mind and the brain.
Mm-hmm.
There's a distinction. The brain is that physical organ that sits in your head that gathers and collects information, catalogs it, refines it, assimilates it, digests it. That's what the brain does. But the energy, the frequency, the vibration, the rate at which the brain calculates come from the energy that we call the mind.
Mm.
So when we say we have a mental health issue, we're not talking about the brain. We're talking about the vibration, the energy, the frequency that is surrounding the brain. We're talking about the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And things can go wrong in energy. Your lights can be out because there's an electrical shortage.
Mm-hmm.
Your computer can go down because something goes wrong in your hard drive. You understand?
Yeah.
That energy that drives the thing can be off. And when that happens, what we get is mental imbalance, mental dis-ease, mental health challenges.
Yes.
Make sense?
Absolutely. In terms of the mind being somewhat equivalent to our thoughts. And specifically with psychotic disorders, the thoughts can be overwhelmed with
Yeah.
hallucinations and delusions.
Yeah.
Some people may argue, well, who's to say what's a delusion versus what is reality? And it's important for families who may have a loved one who's dealing with recognizing reality versus delusions to not get overwhelmed in trying to control the narrative.
Yeah.
What do you say to those who may be of the majority in what is reality, trying to help someone who may struggle with their mind's thoughts that appear to be delusions?
Well, I think that's where having a deeper understanding of spiritual reality can be helpful, because there are those spiritual theories that say we're living in a parallel universe, that we're living past, present, and future right now.
Mm-hmm.
The soul that continues to take on a body and live. So your body, whether you call it past life or whether you call it karma, whatever you call it, that there can be multiple realities going on. And very often my experience has been very, very often. Let me give you a classic example. I have a great grandson. He's 6 years old. He's 6. He lives with me and I'm old. So we don't have a lot going on. I monitor TV, I monitor tablet. He don't have a phone. He know how to pray. He blesses his head every day because I'm weird. I'm the weird grandma. Okay. So I was at a friend's house with him and she was on the phone with her mother on a what they call FaceTime.
Mm-hmm.
She says to her mother, Ia is here with her grandson, say hi, and turns the phone around. He's never seen this woman a day in his life. Never.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, hi, sweetie, how are you? He said, I'm fine. What's your name? She said, my name is Audrey. He said, your mother killed your father. Everybody at the table was like, She said, what did he say? He said, your mother killed your father. It was the truth.
Mm.
Her mother and father were in a violent relationship. The father attempted to stab the mother and she shot him dead.
Mm.
How did he know that? Parallel universes, different levels of sensitivity, different levels of energy. So very often, particularly my experience has been when there's a bipolar disorder, people are living in various levels of reality. So you, me here in this third dimension, we're sitting here doing this. Somebody who's tapped into their mind is tapped into another level of reality will say that we got fangs, horns, and we're green.
Mm.
That's how they're seeing it. And trying to anchor that in this third dimension and make sense of it, they just can't. Nothing's wrong with their brain, but energetically, vibrationally, where they are tapped into in reality, it's just not what we call reality. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. I
6-year-old tell somebody he's never seen that he's never seen these people.
Mm.
And it happened 30 something years ago. Parallel realities, parallel universes. It's energetic and you can tap into it.
I really appreciate you sharing that. I recently rewatched a documentary called Crazy Wise, and it touches on, the different frequencies that people may be on and interpretations of reality. And what I took away from watching that documentary is that it takes time and
Yes.
someone who may be trained to
Yes.
help a person to manage the visions, for example.
Yes.
Visions that I would say Harriet Tubman experienced to help lead people
got
to
him out.
freedom.
That's how she got him freed. She had
Right.
tapped to another level of reality, and she was an epileptic.
Mm.
She had epilepsy.
Yes.
But those seizures
Right.
changed the frequency in her brain where she was tapping into and she just called it the Lord told me. Okay.
Yes.
The Lord told me. So we don't know, like I said, the theory of parallel universes where past, present, and future is going on right now. She may have been able to tap into the frequency of this is how we get there. This is where we got to go. This is who we got to see. I don't know. She got it done.
Absolutely. Over 700, some may say, according to research and documents. And just the bravery to go back, to continue to go back and get more people to help them, lead them to freedom. With the need to take time, and with the need for someone who's trained or understands this, how does one connect if they want to be able to manage these thoughts, manage their mind and where their mind takes them, in order for them to be able to function on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. Well, I don't know this to be true. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I'm a spiritual technician.
Mm-hmm.
What I do know is that when the brain is operating very quickly and you're gathering a lot of information and you're tapped into different frequencies, and I know this only because I've spoken to people who had the experience. Sometimes you got to do meds.
Mm-hmm.
You got to slow the mind down. And people don't like that because, of course, we're treating the symptom, and a medication is going to impact your whole body. I say the same thing to people that are, seeing things and hearing things, to the people who are so catatonically depressed they can't brush their teeth in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
The med, take it, because it's helping the brain manage itself in whatever the energy is that's going on. That's number one. My bigger concern, however, are for the caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
The caregivers, because you're helpless. You don't, this doesn't make sense to you. And then you're trying to talk them out of their reality. That's not going to happen. And so the caregivers, I think, have to be very, very mindful of how much they do, how far they go, and when you have to let go. And let go may look like, assisted living. It may look like an institution. It may look like meds, because medical noncompliance for mental health issues is huge in our community. People don't want to take the meds. If they got high blood pressure, even though they may get ED, they'll take the meds. If they've got a heart condition, even though they can't have another fried chicken wing, they'll take the meds. If they've got tumor fibroids and they're bleeding, they'll take the meds. If your brain ain't functioning, take the meds. Okay.
Right.
But again, the cellular memory, I can't be Black and have something wrong with me. So I go into denial. So caregivers have to have clear boundaries. If it means the person can't live in the home because they're dangerous, harmful to them or to you, that's a conversation that needs to be had.
Yes.
How much you try to talk the person out of their reality and try to make them see it your way, that's a useless conversation. It's unkind to them and it's unloving to yourself. And also, to have that space where you can, because it's sad, it's heartbreaking. Because again, when it comes to severe mental illness, you're helpless. There's nothing you can do. You can't talk them out of it. I do believe that there are technologies that help, whether it's Reiki, where you can get the energy in the body spinning all together. I believe that you need that. Certain forms of hypnotherapy can help. And, this is probably going way over the edge of the boat right now. Spiritual entities. Spiritual entities, because they're energy. It's energy. It's energy. I think if we understand what spiritual energy is, you can embrace spiritual entities, and some people have it. They have energy on them, with them, in them, that's not theirs. It's not.
Can you give an example of the spiritual entity versus the spiritual energy?
Okay.
And how one might be able to recognize that in themselves, or
When
perhaps
people hear voices, it's an entity. It's an entity. So-and-so told me to do something. They have picked up a disembodied energy, a frequency. They tapped into a frequency that is not theirs to have. And there are many people and who know how to identify that and how to neutralize it, how to neutralize that energy. That's what the shamans do.
Yes.
That's what shamans do. Shamans know how to neutralize energy in you, on you, and around you. And sometimes people have picked up negative. I tell you, I don't go to cemeteries. I do not. I've got 2 daughters who are deceased.
Yeah.
I drive my car there and I sit and I look, and then I drive my car out. I don't put my feet in the cemetery dirt because I can feel the energy. I can feel it. And I'm not taking nobody home with me that don't pay rent. No, stay over there. Stay right there where you are. And the first time it happened to me that I was like, what in the world? I thought I was crazy. But I could feel this heaviness, and then just, why am I thinking that? What am I doing? So we need to have a whole nother show, because that scares that's voodoo, that's witchcraft. Well, you go on walking to the cemetery and take somebody with you. I ain't taking nobody home with me. Because I'm spiritually sensitive, So an entity, usually, most people who have violent, many people, not most, many people who have violent reactions in response to their mental discord, have picked up an entity. And there's very simple ways to get rid of them. Sometimes spiritual bathing, sometimes incense, sometimes there are different things. It all depends on what it is. But we pick them up. There's a spiritual entity walking on the planet right now that's everybody's exposed to every day. I'm not calling no names. It's a spiritual entity. I know what I'm looking at.
Yes.
Sucking people right up in it. I'm like, oh my goodness. And people don't know. Because the brain will tell you, I like this, I like that, this sounds good, that sounds good. That's how Jim Jones got people to drink Kool-Aid, and that's an entity. That's a dark spiritual energy that is not vibrating, using the Bible upside down to suck people into its energetic field. Because entities feed off energy. They feed off energy. They do.
I truly appreciate this conversation, and you have to have a certain level of openness and space to allow information that you may not be familiar with or is not a part of your learning. Many of us reach a point in our adulthood where we realize we need to unlearn some things, relearn, and just learn. And in that learning process, being open to things we may not have understood before, had ever heard of before. And with this conversation, I would say that would be me included, right? So in my quest to do all I can for my loved one who lives with severe mental illness, I am open. Like I said, watching that documentary Crazy Wise, that was something that I was open to do, even though it may have challenged my religious beliefs.
Well, let's go there. Let's go there. Because people don't want to talk about things like this because it is against Jesus. Well, what do you think was happening when Jesus sent the spirit into the pigs? That was an entity.
An entity.
That was an entity. And what do you think is happening in the New Testament when Paul said, my spirit is willing, but my flesh is weak? We all have weakness in our flesh. And what is that? All throughout Scripture. But they don't teach us that part in a way that's applicable to who we are today. Many people, I mean, as a spiritual technician, I know that certain drugs have a spirit. Certain drugs, alcohol.
It's called spirits. Alcohol, yes.
Called alcohol spirits.
Yes.
Because you put it in your body, it changes the frequency of your mental energy, and you do all manner of wonderfulness. So, cocaine has a spirit. Heroin has a spirit. This fentanyl has a spirit, meaning an energy that changes the frequency of how your brain operates. That's a spirit beyond the physical. So, Jesus did it. And he said, these things that I do, you shall do this and even greater. So if he can send the spirit into the pigs, what are we doing with some of our loved ones who've picked up, imbalanced frequencies, imbalanced energies, or have tapped into another realm of reality? What do we do? So if you don't want to look at alternative means of addressing that, then you just will do what you're doing. And if it's not working, just keep doing it.
Right. I really encourage people, and let me just take a moment to thank everyone who is tuning in today. This is, again, a very important conversation and just the start of many more conversations that should be had as it relates to severe mental illness, but also just specifically, in the Black community, a lot of us grew up in the church, whatever that denomination may have been or continues to be. And it's just important to, like I said, have some openness in your learning, in your adulthood, so that you can be in a better position to not only help yourself, but to help others. So as we talk about like religion And some people, and let me take a step back. I wanted to distinguish, like with religion versus spirituality versus just having a relationship with a higher power. Some people like choose to just say, the universe, for example.
Right.
What
That's
is your
because
take on that?
traumatized and abused by the word God. You don't
Mm.
have to call it God. God is real. Call it Harry. Call it Matilda. Really, whatever, if that works for you. It's the frequency, the creative frequency and energy of the universe. That's what it is. And it exists. Scientists are now saying that it exists.
Yes.
Newton said it exists. Einstein said it existed. They say it exists. There's an intelligence. How does a sperm know to go look for the egg? There's no other use on the planet anywhere on. They can use the umbilical cord to make conditioner for your hair. There is no other use on the planet for a sperm. How does the sperm know how does it know that? Many, many years ago, back in the 70s, Minister Louis Farrakhan found a study or read a study, and he said when they tested the chemical frequency, that the chemical composition of sperm, it was the same as dirty dishwater. There is no other use in the planet for a sperm other than to fertilize an egg. Okay? So scientists are now saying that there's an intelligence. How does a newborn baby know to come out? You put it on the breast and it suckles. How does it know? How does it know, first of all, what suckling is? And two, that if it suckles, it's going to get something in return. Just know that. There's a divine intelligence. So when we talk about spirituality, that energy, that essence, that intelligence, that non-physical, that metaphysical, beyond the physical intent, beyond the physical energy, is a name for it is spirit. So when we talk about spirituality, we're talking about tapping into the non-physical creative energy that permeates all of life. How does a tree know to lose its leaves in October? How does the tree know that? And how does the tree know it's April, leaves coming back? That's an intelligence. How do the fish know to swim upstream? How does the penguin male sit on the egg? I mean, who knew?
Right.
So when we talk about religion, we're talking about the structure, the rules, the protocols, the regulations that create conformity or uniformity in the approach to this universal intelligence that's called God, Source, Creator, Wankantanka, Allah, Baha'u'llah, Olodumare, whatever you call it. These are the rules. This is how you do it. Where we went astray is that people made it as a function of colonization. People made those rules and shifted and changed them and what they got to do and boo, boo, boo to control people. That's where the mistake came in. And so many people now are so traumatized. They'll say God, Source, Creator. They'll say Source, Creator, Universe, but won't say God. If you can't say God, you're not going to get to Source and Creator.
Right.
You got heat on it, you know? And so, and many people who have experienced maybe not severe mental illness, but mental health imbalance is a function of fear of God. It's a function.
But that's an interesting perspective in that it seems to be like a common symptom of people with severe mental illness to have some connection with God and spirituality in their discussions, in their what we may perceive as delusions,
Yes.
and like a battle between law enforcement and spiritual connection.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting that it's a common theme
Yes.
from different stories that I've read about.
Yeah.
What do you take on that? Like, you think that there's some, what do you think about that?
I think that human beings are so limited,
Mhm.
biased, and arrogant in their understanding that the minute they can't identify it, it's not in their catalog in their brain, that they label it bad, wrong, not right, unnecessary. I don't know if these people are tapped into a frequency of mind, consciousness. I don't know.
Mhm.
Uh, and so when human mind, can't understand something, is afraid of something, can't figure out something, they'll immediately enact a law and make it wrong and make you wrong
Mhm.
for it. Because I know many people who've had mental health challenges who say they've seen God, they hear God, they talk to God, and God told me to. Um, I don't know if God told you to cut them people up and put them in a black plastic bag, but whatever you were hearing, that's what you heard. And then law enforcement, that's just bad, wrong. And it is. I mean, it's not
Mhm.
what we want people to do, but the approach to dealing with it,
Mhm.
putting someone in prison as opposed to getting them medicated or cared for or supported in a way. Um,
Yes.
Dr. Imoto was a psychiatrist in Hawaii, and he created a system, a technology called the Ho'oponopono. And he worked with what do they call it? People who were criminally ill. They were mentally ill, but they had committed crimes. There's a whole phrase. I don't know what you call it.
Like competent in to
No,
have
these
the intent.
were
Okay.
locked up because they were criminally insane.
Oh.
They had done all manner of things, and they were institutionalized in Hawaii. And he would sit and listen to them talk. And he started doing this process called the Ho'oponopono. And while the person was talking, he would say, Corey, I love you. Please forgive me. I am so, so sorry you're having this experience. Thank you. So and so, please. He would say this in his mind, this mantra
Mhm.
over and over and over with these patients, for these patients. And he started seeing them improve. Just bringing that energy, that love into the space. And he's the one, Dr. Emoto is the person that studied how the vibration of the voice impacts the mind. And he did it with water. He did a study of water where you play certain music, the molecules in the water look this way. You put it under certain light, the molecules in the water look that way. And how important it is for us to use our mind and our words in the process of creation. And he created this, and that's what he used with his patients. So
Mm.
caregivers, um, even mental health professionals, your tone of voice, your speaking, how you do it when you're working with someone with severe mental illness, it's important. It's
Yes.
because people get so busy trying to treat the illness until they forget things like, I love you.
Yes.
You matter to me. They forget kindness because it's, again, most people feel helpless when
Mhm.
dealing with someone who has a severe mental illness.
That is so very important. And it makes me think of the significance and importance of NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, and the training that it has available through their programming, family to family training, as well as the peer to peer support
Yeah.
training. And I'm honored to be a trained facilitator now after having gone through the program and learning. It was so significant. It's just a significant step in my learning process to be able to be there. But one major difference, I do agree, is the way that you communicate and talk with your loved one who has a severe mental illness. And how we talked earlier about like arguing with them to rationalize and have them reason with what your reality is versus just allowing them to the space
Yeah.
to say what they're saying. You know that more than likely is not accurate, but you don't have to make them know that it's not accurate, and just try to keep the relationship intact, as well as addressing whatever issue that your loved one may be experiencing at that time. I
Yeah.
attribute my any success that I have established in that area to NAMI, and just the way that they help us to understand how we can respond. You
Yeah.
know, the way you don't want to respond versus the way you may want to consider responding,
Right.
in order to continue to be an effective caregiver. And
Yeah.
also, it also helps to create the boundaries that you would need for your own mental health. Because if you continue to argue with someone in any situation, it impacts you. It takes your energy away, right?
Yeah.
These are steps and strategies that you can invoke in your relationships in order to make sure you have your boundaries, as well as, again, effectively addressing any issue or concern you're having with your loved one who lives with severe mental illness. So I really appreciate that. And I'm going to look up Dr. Emoto
Yeah.
to learn more about some of his work. And just to take a moment, I see that people are putting in comments in the chat. Thank you so much for joining this important conversation. We really appreciate you tuning in. And when you were trying to determine what that word was to go along with criminal, and I'm thinking about a person needing to go to trial, and are they competent to stand trial? I just want to say that Victoria Neal put in the chat, insane, right when you found it to say it. So thank you very much, Victoria, for putting that in the chat. And again, thank you all for joining and sharing your comments during this conversation. So, Dr. Vanzant, you have traveled the world. You help people around the world, and you've studied this great work in terms of spirituality. As we have talked today, focusing on severe mental illness, for those who just want to understand how they can enhance their path or connection with their spirituality, what tips would you offer them to do so? And then, taking it a step further, if you're in the capacity of a caregiver like me, with someone who lives with severe mental illness, are there any differences or some add-ons that we should consider in making sure we're staying connected to the positive energy and the positive spiritual connection that can help continue to guide us in our work?
You know, one of the things that right now I'm in the middle of a 23-day process. 6:30 every morning I get up. I have about 300 people online. And I'm teaching them, it's called a drill in silence, connecting with love. But one of the things that happens when we're dealing with any kind of crisis, mental health crisis, any kind of crisis, I'm talking now about the person and the caregiver, it's the chatter. What's going on in your mind, in your brain and the mind, those files that are opening up. You know, we're awfulizing. We've got terrorists that live in our mind that take us worst possible.
Rent-free.
Okay, I mean, I think the Hamas or the Al Qaeda, we got them terrorists in our mind. So one of the things that in the drill for silence, I'm teaching people is the breath and the word that'll still the mind, bring the mind to stillness. I think that is so critical for caregivers to have 5, 7, 11, 20 minutes, 2-3 times a day when you can still the mind. Because when you still the mind, you really do tap into the universal intelligence. So for me as a technician, your meditation time, your quiet time, there's you've got to have that. because you've got to still the mind. We're wondering, are they going to do today what they did yesterday? And when you're experiencing bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or the whole host of things. And for me, depression is, I put that in there too. I consider
Mhm.
that a severe mental illness because it can take people to take their lives,
Yes.
you know, when the chatter is about hopelessness, helplessness. This is never going to change. I'm wretched. I'm whatever. And I've lived through that with a couple of people. With I'm talking severe depression. Um, so for the caregiver and for the person, you got to have those moments where you can still the mind, still it, and you can do it with a breath. The other thing is, television, music, that sound like frequency. What kind of music can you play? You can go right to YouTube and get them. Different frequencies of music that you can play like white noise in your house, in the home. Don't mean the TV can't be on. You got this playing too. That will create a different frequency, the 222 megahertz or the 444 megahertz. The frequency of the music, the combination helps to stimulate, helps to calm the brain. Or in depression, if you want to stimulate it, you go to a 888 or a 777. Again, all of this stuff is on YouTube.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of research, Corey, and a lot of techniques and tools that are out there, have been out there for years.
Right.
We are behind. We're behind in what we're open to, what we're using, what we avail ourselves of, so that we can get some help. With your mom, go look it up.
Mhm.
Strings, string music, violin, cello, very, very good to neutralize static energy in the mind. Strings. Why? Because there's only one universe. And there are energy, the musical notes correspond to a certain frequency in the brain. Just get you some cello music, violin music, let it play in the background.
Mhm.
And don't think that it's going to change her overnight. But I guarantee you, in a few days, if she's around it long enough, you're going to begin. And if you see her getting agitated, then come out the cello, come out the strings, go to the piano.
Mhm.
There's a woman, oh God, I tell you, my brain be taking naps. My brain will just go on a nap, right? I'm trying to find the word is sleeping on the brain. Um, but there's some beautiful, beautiful soft piano music. My
Yeah.
grandson, every night he goes to bed, I turn on YouTube and I play different music for him so that even as he's sleeping, because he's hyperactive, he don't have ADHD, or he might, I don't know, but he's active. He's a Virgo like me. Mind always running, mouth always running. So I let him sleep to a certain music, a certain frequency every night, you know. Um, so that's a diet. Oh my God.
Oh yes, yes. We don't want to think about the diet though, because we don't want to let certain foods go. We
Yeah.
don't want to let change our diet, but we could change our health. We can
You
change the
can.
trajectory of our health with our diet.
Green, 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 green juice, green vegetables. Why? They oxygenate the brain. And when there's a severe mental illness, there is a deprivation of oxygen,
Mm,
either because the mind is moving so fast, or how the person's breathing, and the oxygen is really not circulating. Well, that's one of the things we do in the drill in silence, giving people a breath. Do this, slow the brain down. But green, uh, no processed foods. And
mhm.
that's my problem with mental health institutions, because they take a lot of stuff out the can, you
Yeah.
know. Fresh vegetables. Uh, if you're eating meat, make it, get it as pure as possible. I don't know if organic works. I don't eat meat, so I don't really know. But if you're eating meat, get it organic. Get your chicken organic. Get your poultry organic. No farm raised fish. Get your fish wild caught out the ocean where the mother has nutrients and minerals. Just simple little things like that. If it's in a can, you don't want it. you know. Get some corn, cut it off the cob, cook it up with some onions and butter,
Yes.
you know.
Mhm.
Or you can, the more chemicals and preservatives you can get out of the body, that's also very helpful. Oxygenates the blood, helps, But in some severe mental illnesses, you got to fight with the people to eat. You want to give them what's attractive to them, or what they want, so it's really, it's a challenge, and you got to pray.
Yes,
You got to pray.
absolutely.
I don't care who you pray into. Pray to Elmer Fudd. I don't care.
Something to know that they're incorporating support in your own life if you are
Yes.
a caregiver, a
Yeah.
loved one who is trying to be there for the person who's living with severe mental illness. But it's important, as you talked about, you mentioned us, we're behind, and just having this discussion helps to eliminate the stigma that's
Mhm.
associated with mental health issues and concerns. It's like we can't even say mental health just as a part of our health, our overall physical health, inclusive of our mental health, without people thinking it means something else. And
Yeah.
my intent in having these different segments about Mental Wealth Wednesday is to break down barriers and to eliminate the stigma associated with mental health, and specifically severe mental illness. Because if you really think about it, it is the symptoms of severe mental illness that are depicted in negative ways, that people are seeing and associating with mental health. Or
Right.
you use certain phrases like, crazy or a lunatic or whatever. It's all associated with negative images that we may see on television or hear about. And so if we kind of shift away from those words and describing things, or uh, allowing ourselves to know that this is a part of life for a lot of people, 1 in 5
Yes.
people in the United States live with severe mental illness.
Yeah.
And it is highly unlikely that a person with severe mental illness would do harm to someone more than a person who does not have
That's
uh,
that's
severe mental illness. So, as we continue to learn, talk about this, educate ourselves, we can help spread accurate information and know what is available to us if we do have this in our families and we want to be able to support and continue to love up on our loved ones. But
yeah.
most importantly, you said it's a challenge, and
It's a
that is real.
challenge.
That
Yeah,
is
it's
real.
a challenge. But with severe mental illness is one thing, but then there are those people who are mentally imbalanced, and because they're not barking at the moon or running around naked, they think they don't have a mental health issue.
Mhm,
Procrastination is a mental health issue.
mhm.
Severe obsessive compulsive disorder is a
Right.
mental health. Hoarding is a mental health issue. And we'll accommodate and tolerate that and call it, she's buying, or he's doing this or that, certain depths of, the big word now is narcissism. Oh, they're
Mm,
narcissists. Oh, they're not. So these are also mental health imbalances that can become more severe if they're not addressed.
right.
And then under there, those toxic emotions that create mental distress, fear, shame, guilt, unworthiness, uh, hopelessness, helplessness, lead to a certain level of stress and mental dissonance, mental and emotional dissonance that can grow into other kinds of mental imbalances and mental health issues.
Mm,
So I think that, we got to look at it all. We have to look at it all. There are those family members and loved ones and people who have it at, the high pitch. But there's also the polarity where it's a low simmering stew and people aren't paying attention to it.
Yes.
Paying attention to the person that continues to voice hopelessness. That's a problem right there.
Mm-hmm.
People who are continuing or riddled with toxic shame and guilt. I cannot tell you how many women that I've worked with who are riddled with guilt because they had an abortion and they go into hell. I said, "Thou shalt not kill." Well, okay, I hear that. Is there another possibility you're willing to look at?
Right.
Another possibility. Let's raise it up out of what would be the purpose? What would be the purpose? And I'm just using this as an example, not advocating one way or the other. What would be the purpose of an almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent God to provide a solution or a choice to a situation and then condemn you if you take the choice? What would be the point of that? Because the mind of the person that created the abortive process or whatever it is, that mind was also connected to the infinite intelligence. So it's a choice. God has given us free will. So why would you be given free will and make this choice for whatever reason for yourself and then be condemned with God? They're not as concerned about the fact that they had the abortion and ended the life as they are about they going to hell. Baby, this is hell. You living with that is hell.
Right.
You living with that is hell. So I tell people, even those things that really weigh down our mind and create psychological and mental dissonance, even if you were wrong, if you should have never did that, if that was a sin that was bad, you're still going to meet a forgiving God.
Right.
Put your money on that. You're still going to meet a forgiving God.
Amen.
Because so much mental dissonance, particularly for women and women of color, absence of our culture, of our understanding. One of the greatest things that I learned was how to honor, revere, and access ancestors. That level of energy. Why? Because it's in my blood. It's in my blood. And, I don't know if my grandfather was a pedophile. I don't know if my grandmother was a hoe in the bar. I don't know. I do know my grandmother, my grandfather, but I mean other generations. So I want to elevate that energy, lift that energy up in me. I don't know how they died. I don't know if they were hung on a tree, if they shot somebody, killed somebody, whatever it is, but that DNA is in my blood. I want to lift that up. So, my matriarchal lineage, my patriarchal lineage, the blood that runs warm in my veins, may we all be lifted high into the light. And for people who have severe mental illness, your loved ones, pray for the ancestors in them. Because they're in pure energy now. They're in pure form now. Lift energy up, lift that up. And when someone has severe mental illness, so very often we focus on their behavior till we forget about their soul. Pray for that person. I see you calm, peaceful. I see you, your mind balancing, and just affirm it so that we can create a different mental connection.
And that creates a more loving space between the two of you, and as you continue to, walk in this life, because if you're going to be there for someone in that capacity, supporting them in their life, you want to make sure you have a relationship that is functioning, that you are able to communicate and not having the person shut you out.
Yeah.
which could cause more complications than a lot of caregivers want to endure.
Yeah. And, I want to say, don't wait until the person um, harms themselves or gets involved with the police system, the legal system, to acknowledge, okay, this is the problem.
Right.
This is a problem.
And it's going to be a challenge anyway. And I just see this comment that is right. It touches right on what you just said, but it says that the fact that we have to wait until dangerousness happens in order to treat psychosis is endangering us and them.
Yeah.
The acts done during psychosis makes no sense to anyone except the person in delusion or hallucination. Leaving someone in this state, homeless, living under a bridge, eating out of trash can, is totally legal in this country.
Yeah.
It's not right. We need humane action of an assisted outpatient treatment so that they are not left alone to suffer.
Yeah.
And that is the situation with a lot of family members who, because of the laws of the land, are not able to fully help their loved one. And, I just mentioned about trying to keep a open relationship with your loved one. They could become mad and leave, and you would never be able to track them down until there is a situation where they may engage in a criminal activity that
Or get hurt.
incarcerated. Or hurt. And then they're incarcerated rather than taken to receive medical treatment for the situation.
Well, it's going to really take the outcry of the people. So much mental illness came to the surface or was activated during COVID, and we're putting money and all manner of wonderfulness out in the world, and our mental health system and our approach to mental health in this country is just disgraceful. It's disgraceful. You do mental health, I do foster care. Both of those systems. I just can't take it.
Yes. Well, I know our hour is close to an end. It was so much fun talking to you and just hearing your wisdom. And I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with the audience today. I know that you have so many projects going on and just, again, helping so many people across the globe. But what things do you have going on right now? I know I've seen the advertisements for your family reunion, but what are some open activities that you have that
right now, for me, it is a drill in silence, teaching people to shut down the chatter in their mind. And that's part of the larger program that I'm doing this year called Awakening 1 Million. My vision is to awaken 1 million people about how to tap into their spiritual power, their spiritual genius, not in their brain, but in the energy of their mind.
Yes.
Find out all of that at iyanla.com. A drill in silence we do every single morning at 6:30 on my streaming platform, IVTV. And I want to thank you for what you're doing. I mean, that you have this platform and you dedicate an entire day to mental wealth and health. I think, thank you for that so much. Because the more we talk about it, the more it helps. And I just want to say to everybody, be careful of the entities as we get closer to November.
Yes. That it is a real thing. And again, I'm even talking about myself. We have to be open to things that we may not have learned or we have been told were wrong in our childhood or as we grew up. Again, I'm open to learning more about spirituality versus religion, and definitely versus denominations, and just being. How do we be? I have a very close friend, Kamala Douglas, who I listen to some of the things that she says, and she talks about the frequencies. And I'm starting to see that more and more. And hearing the information that you shared today, I have a better understanding. And ultimately, I want to learn more about these frequencies and our energies and how we can tap into the positive aspects of these things to help us live the highest quality of life. And if we're caregivers, for sure, being able to use that knowledge to help in our relationships with our loved ones who are living with severe mental illness. So
You know,
again, please check out Dr. Vanzant's website. Can you say that again, your website?
Iyanla.com. You can do that.
Oh,
You can find out everything there. And IVTV Fireside is where we're doing a drill in silence every single day. And in the fall, I'm going to do peace of mind. 21-day process to establish peace of mind. Because again, I'm a technician. If your washing machine is broke, you call a mechanic. If
right.
your spirit is broke, call me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Please share any closing remarks that you have for the audience today.
We're going through a major, major transition on this planet. We really, really are. Um, the demise of the patriarchy, the male aggressive domination that we've lived under for 100 years is now giving way to the softer, gentler, feminine energy of love, of compassion, of grace, of mercy, of empathy. We've got to be willing to change who we are, to change what we do, and to change how we do it. Because if not, the universe, life, whatever you want to call it, is going to do it for us. A lot of things are crumbling. A lot of systems are coming down. And if it has to be the cookie cutter way, people are going to be stressed out. So just like you said, you're opening to beyond what you've learned. We all got to be open to learn different, to be different, to do different, to have different, and to know different. Awakening 1 million just to that.
I love that. Awakening. Yes. Thank you so much for joining Corey Empowers with Mental Wealth Wednesday, Dr. Iyanla Vanzant. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on and talk about this very important topic. And I hope that those who are listening today understand and know that there are resources available. Nobody has to be all up in your business. You can contact these resources confidentially via text. You can definitely call 988 if you or a loved one is in a mental health or a substance use abuse crisis. 988 instead of 911.
Right.
And please find out more information on NAMI.org. That's NAMI.org. And we talked a lot about disorders. You can learn more about what are considered disorders in the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostics and Statistics Manual of Mental Disorders, the 5th edition. When I was in school, it was the 4th edition, so they've added some new things. But if you want to know more about disorders, you can look through that book, and to know legally what is considered to be a disability as defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act. So much information, but you can learn more at CoreyEmpowers.com, and also just different tidbits that I provide for those who are caring for those with severe mental illness. So once again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is Corey Minor Smith with Dr. Iyanla Vanzant, and we wish you all a good night. And I'm just ending the live now.